Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Sneha Koshy. Well, if you are in the US, if you are planning to go to the US, there are lots of changes with President-elect Donald Trump, and one has direct bearings on citizenship and how is it going to be looked at, who gets to be a citizen. Is it somebody who is born in United States and continues to get citizenship? Is that going to change? We're going to be looking at all of this with the latest statement of Donald Trump. President-elect Donald Trump is once again making headlines with his vow to end birthright citizenship, a promise he has reiterated since his previous term. In an interview, Trump stated that he is absolutely planning to take action on this issue right from day one of his presidency. Birthright citizenship, which automatically grants US citizenship to anyone born on American soil, has been a long-standing policy protected by the 14th Amendment. Trump and his supporters argue that the current system is being abused, allowing children of undocumented immigrants and those in the United States on temporary visas to automatically gain citizenship. They believe this encourages illegal immigration and birth tourism, where individuals enter the US specifically to give birth. In the past, Trump has suggested limiting this right solely for children of undocumented immigrants. However, the feasibilities of Trump's plan raises significant legal questions. Any attempt to alter birthright citizenship would likely face considerable challenges as it is enshrined in the Constitution. Experts suggest that changing this fundamental right would require either a constitutional amendment or a ruling from the Supreme Court, making it a complex and daunting task. As Trump prepares to take office, the debate over birthright citizenship continues to spark discussions about immigration reform and what it means to be an American citizen in today's world. To break this down further, to try and understand what this means for Indians, I'm being joined by Pathikrit Payne, who's a geopolitical analyst. Very good evening. Thank you for your time. My first question, and the question that everybody has on their mind and has been often discussed since, Donald Trump was running his campaign. This was a big Republican push. The first question that possibly everybody, Mr. Payne, is asking, how is this going to affect, quote unquote, the dreamers?
Good evening, Sneha. Well, I think, we have to understand that anybody who goes to United States for the sake of, making a better life cannot make it a fundamental right or presume that it's their birthright, that invariably the next generation, if they take birth in United States, they will automatically get citizenship forever. This is a policy of the United States government. Of course, it is a constitutional aspect of it, the 14th Amendment. Now, there is a government which is coming with an overwhelming majority. If they decide that they want to change it, then it is the prerogative of the government of the United States. If they do so, then everybody will have to abide by it. But at the same time, we must also understand that Trump is very pro in terms of ensuring quality skilled workers come to United States and do not get away, because in one of his speeches during the presidential election campaign, he said that many of those who come to United States for studies, even when we go back to their own countries, he mentioned India, and then they become billionaires. So it's not essentially that he is against immigration. It is not that he is against Indians. But let's presume that it cannot be a fundamental birthright for anybody that, okay, since I have gone there to work for a particular period of time, let me ensure that my next generation is born there. So by virtue, they get citizenship, and by virtue of we being their parents, we will also get citizenship. I think it's a little unfair to expect that it will continue for a long period of time, because it invariably had its own merits, but it has been misused to the hilt. I personally know people who actually did that way to sneak in and get citizenship. I think if something like that happens to any other country, including India, I think a lot of people in India would also oppose it. Back to you.
In fact, they are opposing politically also. If you have an equivalent in India, it's quite in a debate. But Mr. Payne, sticking back to the US, you said about people sneaking in. That's one aspect of it. And quite frankly, illegal immigrants are quite at the cusp of a lot of political backlash that several countries, including in the West, are really facing. But there's another aspect to it. a very silent conversation, as many would say, about those who plan their entry into the United States to give birth. The creme a la creme of those in India. How should that elite group of Indians or those aspirational Indians really be looking at this? Because it's not legally established. This is not something that is an industry by itself, but many would come forward and say this is very much a practice that exists.
Well, unfortunately, this is a reality. There is an obsession till date that life is always greener when you go to United States, but it has its own challenges for anybody who stays there. Realize it once they go over there. And I think somewhere down the line, because it has been misused for a long period of time, I reiterate and I agree with you, because that policy had its own merits in terms of giving automatic birth citizenship to those who are born there. But because it has been, misused to a great extent, and that's why there is this conversation and debate which happened for a long period of time, and people actually voted, if you see, to Donald Trump because primarily of this. So this elite cream de la cream, as you rightly mentioned, I think it's a reality check for them. There are people who made it big in India. There are people who have become billionaires. You don't just become better in your life just because you have got an American citizenship. Of course, at the same time, you can actually become an American citizen. You can get a green card, provided you actually contribute to that country. And in that way, America has been very generous in terms of ensuring that there was a time in India, Sneha, where talent was absolutely not entertained during the license Raj period. And a lot of great minds went to United States at the cost of India's future, perhaps because we did not understood their talent. They went there, they flourished, they created wealth for the American society, and the American society reciprocated by giving them the honor and citizenship. So you see the whole team of Donald Trump, many of them are Indian, people of Indian origin. How did they go there? Because they were contributing to the society. But if somebody's purpose is only to give birth to the next generation, that's the reason I'm going there selectively as an opportunist. I think somewhere down the line, it would have had a backlash. And that's what we are witnessing right now.
Right. Right, Mr. Payne, and before we just wind up, one last question to you. And it's also important to put this in the US context. With the latest interview that Donald Trump has given, it's interesting that he says, I'm open to work with the Democrats to ensure that the dreamers are not affected. It's interesting because, this is something that the Republicans have been pushing for, to do away with the birthright to citizenship. And yet, in the latest, he says, I'm open to work this out with Democrats. How do you read that?
Well, purely because, Sneha, this is a technical issue. If he wants to, do away with the 14th Amendment, it requires a constitutional reform and amendment, which would require 2/3 of both the houses, like the House of Representatives and the Senate. You need to pass with 2/3 majority in both the houses of Congress. Then 3/4 of the states would have to ratify. Invariably, they do not have an overwhelming 2/3 majority in both the houses. So they would require cross-voting. They would require some Democrats to vote for them. So he would try to have some kind of an understanding. At least that's what it seems. Now, he may have actually had a vision for how he wants the United States to be. But the process, the technical process of doing it cannot be done as it stands today without the support of Democrats. So that's why you see some kind of understanding, settlement, negotiation he's willing to do for it. It doesn't mean that he has joined hands. It's pure politics because of ensuring that the bill can be passed.
Pathikrit Payne, thank you very much for joining us and giving all of this insight, putting this in perspective. Thank you so much. It's going to be a long, drawn road ahead for Donald Trump, but it's going to be something very inherent to his political game plan.